yeah, really informal. I am just going to chat about what we've done at the Whtworth in terms of the family volunteering. Any questions as we go through, feel free to raise your hand or pop them in the comments in the chat, and we can have a look at them afterwards and have a little discussion around them. So yeah, so basically I started a family volunteering program back in 2018. It was in the Easter. I'd actually come back off maternity leave from my first little girl, and whilst I was off with my little girl, I ended up volunteering at my local public hall. So they were looking for a receptionist on a Tuesdays to come and help out with their Wellbeing Tuesdays that they were holding. But obviously I had my baby with me. So I asked them, is it okay if I bring my baby along? Because it was working on the reception. It wasn't too much physical demanding. It was being in one space. And I figured, why couldn't she come with me? Because I wanted to come and volunteer whilst I was off on maternity, because, you know, us volunteer managers, it's never an off day, is it? So yeah, so I ended up volunteering for them every week with my little girl. I have to say, when she hit 6 months, it became a bit of an issue, because that's when she was crawling and I couldn't any longer stay in one position. But it worked really well for me. And I think in terms of, I just wanted some adult engagement, actually, sort of selfishly. You know, you spend a lot of time with your baby, and when you're at home, it can be quite hard. So I felt like I needed that for me, and also to be able to help out to somewhere locally to where I lived. Normally I wouldn't be able to have that time to be able to do that because I work full time. So when I went back to the gallery, I had a discussion with our family coordinator at the time, and I said, why don't we start opening it up for our baby sessions? So we already had quite a successful baby programme, early years programme at the gallery. We used to run every Monday. We'd do a full day of an early years atelier, and then which is like an art sort of studio drop-in. And then we had an art baby, which was basically setting up an area in the art galleries for any mums and dads and carers to come along with their babies and engage in activity, meet other like-minded people, and then join in the art activity. So it was already, the programme was already there. So we thought, if we have our volunteers in place that are welcoming our baby volunteers, then it would be really nice. So we tested it out to begin with our current volunteers that we'd got on board. So we welcomed them to bring their babies along. So obviously you might be thinking, what are the babies going to do as a volunteer? We got them in volunteer t-shirts. So for starters, it was super cute to have the little babies in volunteer t-shirts, and the parents loved that. So there was lots of pictures being taken, but it was a really nice conversation starter. So we actually just found, in really sort of simple terms, having that one parent or carer there with their baby, both of them with their volunteer t-shirts, they just greeted all the participants that came in, because it was quite a sort of fluid activity, and they could go over and chat with them. They normally spoke about having babies and went on to that conversation straight away. But it was really nice to be able to have that as a starting point. We'd given them, obviously they already had quite a lot of information about what we do at the gallery. They'd been inducted already, so they knew about all our other activities that go on, so they would be able to signpost those parents to the other activities. So for us, it worked perfectly, really. And that kind of spread quite quickly. A lot of people were really interested in taking part in that. So we had a really good group of parents. I have to say, admittedly, it was mainly mums. We have since tried to engage more dads in it, but not successfully so far, just because we got hit with COVID, obviously, before we could really start getting into things. But the parents that we did have involved were brilliant. So that was a really good starting point for us. We then wanted to expand it to our family programming, so our older children getting involved. So again, we trialed this out during an Easter activity. We have a learning studio at the back of the gallery. So again, I got some of our regular volunteers to bring along their grandchildren or their children. So it started off with one of our volunteers bringing on her grandchildren who were twins, and they were 8 years old at the time. So they came along during the holidays. She was looking after them anyway. So for her, it was a really good chance to be able to volunteer and also have her grandchildren with her and do an activity with them. They started off quite shy, obviously. They had no idea what the grandma was dragging them into. I think at first they were a bit like, why are we here? But I always started off with, right, you guys are in charge of fun. So it kind of loosened them up a little bit. And I think when children that age in particular are sort of given some responsibility, they really do then find their confidence a little bit more. And by the end of the week, because they ended up doing 3 days for us that week, they were engaging the younger children, they were setting up activities for them, they were involving everybody, they were actually greeting people as they came through the door and telling them what we were doing. So it was quite a hands-on activity. We were making dens, so it worked perfectly for those family volunteers. And yeah, they were really good. Obviously, we didn't give them the extra responsibilities that we would give other volunteers. It was literally, yeah, they were in charge of fun. They were there to play. But again, they had the t-shirts on. They were sort of representing the gallery. So I said, like, you've got to make sure you're on your best behaviour. And then also we were able to have that sort of flexibility in terms of, whenever they needed to have a break, whenever they needed to have lunch, it just happened when they needed it. So we didn't give them any scheduled breaks, what we would normally give for the volunteers. We were super flexible with them. If they needed to go off and just do their own thing for a little bit, we could do that. So I'd say, like, in terms of what we've learned from the start of it, we had to make sure that we then had enough volunteers that were on that more of a structured session and shift that could cover that, to be able to give those family volunteers that flexibility. So yeah, as a trial, that started off really well. As I say, it was only 1 or 2 people. So then in the summer, we opened it a little bit further. So we did a sort of targeted recruitment. So it was a group of families that we already engaged through our cultural activities in Manchester. We kind of did a call out just to them to say if anyone's interested in doing family volunteering, and the response was crazy. It was just on a Facebook call out, but I think it was just in terms of them seeing that was an opportunity, people really loved it. They were like, that's brilliant, because obviously, as we all know, it's a big barrier, and that's the reason why we did it as well, because people wanting to volunteer and have a family, it's hard for them to find the time and make the time. So that was the sort of original purpose of it. So having the response that we got from just that call out on Facebook showed us that there was that opportunity out there. I have to say, when it came to the actual signing up to do it, obviously, as we all know from original call outs, it then dropped significantly, but that was no bad thing. So we only really wanted to engage 5 families during the summer, just in terms of our capacity and how we welcome them in. So we welcomed them to a family-friendly induction. So when we had our normal induction for all the volunteers, they came along to the same one, but within that induction, we had an area for the children to play. So we set up a couple of different areas. So we had an area we had like babies and toddlers attending with their parents, so they could sit at the front of the hall where we were presenting, and we had some playthings out for them so they could sit and play. And then also for the older children, we had some colouring things out for them, so that, that when we were covering the sort of, the shifts and how people sign up and the bit of health and safety, they didn't have to sit through that in the chairs formally like the other volunteers. You can make it a bit more playful. And then we took them on the normal tour around the gallery, as we do with all the volunteers. And then they could sign up to whatever shifts they wanted during the summer. And again, with that super flexibility of come whenever you want, obviously let us know if you need to leave at any point. Obviously with babies, often some of them were late or didn't turn up at all. That was absolutely fine. We made sure and communicated that there was no pressure. We didn't anyone ever to feel like stressed that they couldn't turn up, and we'd say like, it's covered. If you can't come for any reason, we've still got enough people. It's never, we're never going to be short. And obviously they were just additional on top of the staff support that we have during the summer as well. So we had a really good mix that summer. We had babies. So the youngest baby we had was actually 12 weeks, which was amazing, like literally baby in arms. And then the eldest sort of young volunteer was 14. And it was quite interesting because the 14-year-old obviously came along with their mum, but then actually it gave them that bit of independence. They would go off on their own even though their parent was around, and it gave them that bit of freedom to go and do something for themselves as well. And they came into their own during the summer as well, because they ended up really getting into chatting to the members of public. So the reasons why I started it was the barrier to the volunteering. We already had a programme that was set up that was, really sort of conducive for involving family volunteers. We've got a really good team that were really open to it. So I have to say, I couldn't have done it on my own. So the family coordinator that we have, the early years coordinator, we're really supportive of it, because it does take up a lot of your time, a lot more time than you sort of average volunteer, obviously having a group with you. And obviously initially we thought it would just be for babies under 6 months, because a lot of them were carrying them, but then it's expanded and we've actually welcomed all the different ages. And as Rob mentioned as well, we've since had grandparents and then people volunteering with their parents as well. So we've currently got a volunteer that volunteers with her mum. So she's in her 30s and mum's older, and they volunteer together, which is really nice. So they've done that together as a time for them to spend together and an experience to share together, which is really lovely. I would recommend trialling it. So obviously we trialed it with our current volunteers. So that worked really well. They already knew the system. They already knew how we work. So they could just bring along their children or any other members of their family. And the reason around sort of making the kids in charge of fun just gave them that sort of opening for them to really be able to get involved. Giving them the t-shirt really helped as well. I have to say, like, that was a really big thing, them having that identity around, they were quite sort of proud putting the t-shirt on, and they were the part of the team. Some of the kids loved that they were wearing the same clothes as their mum. So that was quite cute. So it's been sort of very fluid as I've gone along, in terms of looking at the side of the risk assessments and things like that. Obviously it's all been added to the risk assessments. We've cleared it with the Whtworth, a part of the University of Manchester. So we obviously would looked at the duty of care around child protection. But obviously with the volunteers, if they're under 16, they would be volunteering with someone that's over 18. So that was the sort of basic point that we had. You must have someone there that's with you, that's a guardian or a parent that is over 18. So we had a young girl volunteer with us sort of later on in the year. I think it was the following February half term. She was only 19 and she volunteered with her niece. So that was quite interesting, because she found out that you could bring along your family, and she was like, oh, actually I've got to look after my niece, but I'd still like to come in. And that was really great as well. So sort of having a younger person with an even younger person was really lovely and quite sort of endearing as well. And for them, that sort of relationship was really nice. Them having that flexibility was really key, in terms of them being able to leave when they needed to and not having to do a full shift. Our shifts are normally sort of 3 hours, but they'd perhaps come for an hour. So yeah, that fluidity definitely really helped. So in terms of the sort of next steps that we had, we were then part of the NCVO research called the Family Affair. So I'll Rob on it already. There we go. So yeah, we were part of that research. So we got approached by NCVO because they had, so he's popped up on the chat. Sorry, I should have said then, me just randomly saying Rob being on it. So there's some really good information and really good case studies on there. And actually we found that the progression of the family volunteering really started picking up, just, you know, through word of mouth really, and for other families that were coming into the gallery, seeing the other family volunteers and the baby. I think at the beginning the babies wearing the t-shirt was quite a big thing, as you can imagine. Quite a lot of mums are like, I want to volunteer just for the baby t-shirt. So, but then obviously then as we got sort of further down the line, people were really interested. So we got people approaching us just through that, for them seeing them visually. We had just to be really careful about the numbers again, because I think if we'd taken on as many people as that were interested, it would have been too much for us. So yeah, it was very time consuming, and is, you know, a little bit more work than perhaps you would put into a general sort of call out and recruitment of volunteers, but totally worth it. And we'll be doing it again this summer. So we've actually just got 2 family volunteers groups coming in this summer, just as we start back up again, because we've not had them since before pandemic now. So yeah, this summer will be the start up of it again. So I will report back onto how that goes. We also did a little write-up for kids in museums, so I'll pop that in the chat as a little sort of case study again of what we did. So yeah, so I will stop there, because I feel like that's enough talking from me, and we'll perhaps, should we hand over to Leonie and then we can take any questions after? Is everyone happy with that? Perfect. Over to you then, Leonie.
Okay, I'll attempt to share my screen. Okay. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, well, I'll just talk, it's fine.
It's fine, Leonie. We can, I'll give you sharing. Just bear with me a second. Okay, that should work now.
It does indeed, thank you.
Lovely.
Okay, so very similar to what's been mentioned, I'm at the Natural History Museum, and I kind of work designing activities for volunteers. And we'd had a long-term family volunteering program running, you know, where they would come regularly every week. But that fell by the wayside. And I thought, well, how could we do it a little less often, but kind of using our standard volunteering activities. So about 7 years ago, we introduced friends and family volunteering, which is lovely because, you know, as mentioned before, you get all the different age ranges, from grandparents to children to cousins, kind of all coming in to volunteer. So that's really nice. It's turned out to be so popular that we get regular kind of attendees who want to sign up for everyone, which means we do different activities. We offer it a few times a year. And, you know, one day it will be taking out mammal skulls around the galleries. One day it will be sorting out insects into groups, just to keep the interest high for those kind of family members who want to come back and who want some new challenges. So we kind of evaluated it. The thing I was most interested in was confidence levels. And, you know, because volunteers have signed on the dotted line, they've had all the training, but, you know, what would the confidence levels be of their friends and family members that they had brought with them? So I was very interested in kind of having a look at that. And I'm pleased to say they usually all increase in confidence, because it's quite a big thing to go out and interact with the public. You know, if you're a 7-year-old and, you know, quite shy, it's quite a big thing. So the format of the day is, in the morning, we're all together in the classroom, as it were, with the experienced volunteers and their friends and family members. I kind of train them up in the morning morning, we all have lunch together, and then we usually do a little practice before lunch because it kind of banishes the nerves that might build up over lunchtime. So they have a little mini practice, have lunch, and then we go out in the afternoon and do the activities. So we get very positive feedback, as I said, repeat visitors. What I also like about it is that if you have like a diverse volunteer force, the friends and family members that they're inviting along are diverse as well, which is brilliant. And, you know, I love volunteering, but you know, some of my friends say to me, well, why do you do it? I don't understand. Why would you give away your time for free? And many of the friends and family members, that's the same kind of question that they're asking. The children don't understand why the adults are kind of disappearing one day a week. This actually kind of shows them, you know, why they do it, because they go away having really enjoyed it themselves, having kind of seen what their adults do in the museum. It's very kind of nice for them. You know, we try and inject as much fun in it as possible. And, you know, it's wonderful in my book to see the peer learning going on, because in a busy museum, the children who are volunteering, the children of their age will come up to them much more likely than if they're going to come up to someone crusty like me, for example. So having the kind of peer engagements is something really kind of wonderful to watch. So I love the Friends and Family Days for this point of view. So yeah, it's all good fun. Yeah, it's something that we really enjoy. And what I also have done last year is I thought, well, the format works. Why don't I use the format for the Kids in Museums Takeover Day? And so it was effectively a Friends and Family Day, but they were all kind of under 11. We kind of repurposed the format for the Takeover Day so that the kids were running the activities and the volunteers who brought them along were there as the support. So yeah, I mentioned the peer learning. It's something really lovely to see. They do far better at it than I do, so that's really good. And we tried to make it a real kind of occasion. We usually offer them during school holidays, so it's usually part of a family fun day or a festival day. So there's lots of things going on to attract their attention beyond just what we're doing. So for example, this one here was the Kids in Museums Climate Change Takeover Day, and it coincided with the school's holiday family festival because it was in the October to early November half term. So there were lots of things going on in the museum. So we had Earthy from Operation Earth here having a chat with our volunteers. So there's kind of lots of little mini enrichment activities you can offer to them, you know, because let's face it, their adults get enrichment activities that we organise for them, and it's nice that, you know, any volunteer gets that enrichment. So yeah, that was it. I'm going to stop sharing, and I think that's probably my time. So yeah, I'm up for any questions.
Amazing, thanks Leonie, that's really interesting. I have a quick question. So were they for the Friends and Family, was that the staff were volunteering with the Friends and Family, or was it just?
No, it was, so they're all existing volunteers who then invite their friends and family members. We do have a crossover of some staff who are also volunteers, and you know, on that day they're volunteering and they bring in friends and family, but that's a small crossover. So yeah, it's mostly volunteers and their kind of people that they would like to bring along to volunteer.
Yeah. I think that's really nice. I just suddenly thought, like, it'd be really nice, wouldn't it, to have the your, as a staff member, your friends or family come and volunteer at the venue, because I quite liked that comment of like, I never realised what my mum did at the Natural History Museum until I came along. So yeah, so I thought that'd be that's quite an interesting viewpoint as well, getting the staff members to bring their friends and family in to come and volunteer. So I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like we could probably just have a discussion amongst ourselves here, because there's quite a few questions, isn't there? And obviously anyone can raise their hand as we go through. So just having a look through the chat. You all right, Matt?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions in there. So we've got one from Ruth first. Do you want to come in and ask your question, Ruth?
Hi, yeah, I was just wondering if, like, when you had your friends and family days, if you specified a certain age range so that the activities would be age appropriate, or did you design activities that would work for a range of ages? Because that sounds quite challenging.
Yeah, so for our ones, it's 7 and above, because all our activities that we offer on gallery, we tailor for any age. We actually tailor for younger than that age, right up to 100 plus. But the actual getting volunteers in, because it's, you know, half a day in the training room is quite a long time for some ages. We kind of make it 7 and above at the moment.
Yeah, so ours is flexible. Obviously, we've had the youngest and the oldest. That's, again, it's mainly because it sort of mirrors the involvement of the actual activity, like you say. So obviously with the baby ones, we had more baby volunteers with the baby sessions, and then for the family sessions, it was more sort of older volunteers engaging with that.
Fantastic. So we've got lots of other questions, Fee. So shall I, if you've popped something in the chat, I'll come to you. We've got 4, so hopefully we've got enough time. So I'm just going to go through them in the order that they were posted. So Michelle, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking practicalities and registration. If we use I mean, we use Better Impact, others use other, you know, there are other ones out there. But I just wondered, you know, I spoke to somebody who said that they only registered the adult, but the hours that adult recorded were the total for their family. And then you've got others that would register everybody in the family. So I just wondered, how did you both do that? Recording, you know, that the fact is, you know, these are, you know, volunteers and they're part of the organisation, and you know, how they get recorded, if you like.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Yeah, so we used Team Kinetic, so yeah, similar sort of system as Better Impact. But actually, when we started this up, we didn't have Team Kinetic, but so we'd captured the adults' details, and then we actually captured all of their hours. So it'd be, yeah, if they each did a 3-hour shift, it would be 3 per person, even including the baby. So we could then sort of specify that in our recordings in terms of, like, you know, 0 to 3-month-old or 0 to 6-month-old had done this many hours, just because it sort of shows the family volunteering element, and it was a way of sort of breaking down those age groups to show what volunteering hours they've done.
Yeah, the last one we did was for Kids in Museums Takeover Day, and that was before we were using Better Impact. So we'd be capturing it in our kind of internal databases, and there was a bit of form filling prior to, you know, the inevitable form has to be filled in prior to the event. I think I've been diddling people because I haven't included the numbers, the figures. We included the figures of interactions, like how many people the children spoke to, but we didn't include their hours. They were logged as training. So yeah, maybe I'll have to rethink that. Now we're on Better Impact.
Yeah, I'm the same now. Now I'm on a system. You can sort of, it's easier to capture that, isn't it, I suppose?
Brilliant. Thank you for those questions, Michelle. Sarah, you've posted a couple of questions in the chat. Do you want to ask those?
Well, I can't hear Sarah. Can anyone?
Oh, we can't hear you, Sarah. Don't worry if you can. I can ask you questions. It doesn't look like you're muted, so let me scroll back up through the chat. No, not as far as the question about OFE.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can. We can.
Okay, good. So yeah, I was asking if you've collected, like for any of the two projects, if you've collected any visitors' feedback. It'd be interesting to hear about people's experience and how they perceived it, and if this had an impact on their, like, on the workshop they participated in, or the experience, or the way they think about the gallery and the museum.
Yeah, I don't think formally we have captured anything, actually. This is it. This is the thing, isn't it? How we, you start these things up, and then all of that, looking back on it now, it would have been great to get and have those quotes. I've got the feedback from the volunteers, as Leonie has got, and some of that's in some of the NCVO case study that we've got the link up for. But yeah, no, not from visitors, although there was definitely comments from people as they were sort of walking past and seeing those children engaging, and it was all positive. That we've not had any negative impact in terms of, I think, in terms of involving young children in volunteering, there's not been any sort of comments like that. But yeah, I think going forward, it's definitely something worth capturing, isn't it? So I don't know about you, Leonie.
Yeah, so I think once a long time ago we captured some visitors' feedback, but it's well overdue a revisit. But yeah, we're kind of quite busy at catching the feedback of those who participate, the volunteers and their friends and family members who come along to volunteer alongside them. But yeah, again, it's something that we need to, and anecdotally, they'll tell us what the visitors say, because we have a debrief session after each kind of friends and family kind of day. But yeah, in terms of formal kind of evaluation, it's been quite a few years since the last one.
And I had another question about the training. So you've mentioned that the kids attend the training with the adults. Is there any specific training that's targeting the kids, and what does it involve?
Yeah, not for me. I think actually I've just seen Caroline and Joy's questions, but yeah, they were definitely, it was more they'd come along with their sort of parents, so they're kind of joining in, so it was more their sort of extra. I think if it got to a point where I was giving them specific training, for me it might sort of cross the line a little bit, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm not sure about all the logistics around insurance and things, but yeah, the only thing, like I say, was like, come and have fun, enjoy it. And I think anything more is a bit too much pressure. It might be interesting to look into the older volunteers, the sort of 14, 15-year-olds. Obviously there'd be a little bit more information that they would take on board, and even a bit younger than that as well. So yeah, like I say, they attend the induction, so they take on whatever information they want during that session. So
I think there's an interesting point, isn't there, about insurance and engagement of kind of particularly young people who we might not be able to insure. And I think for me, this sort of comes back to why it's important to link your volunteering strategy with the organisational strategy, because actually it can then start to change internal policies and processes. So actually, if as an organisation you have an ambition to be diverse and inclusive, or that you have plans in place to engage younger audiences, then volunteering can be a really powerful tool to help the organisation do that, and to develop, like somebody talked about earlier, develop those relationships with the organisation, with its collection, in a really meaningful and profound way. And if there's an alignment there, then it's far easier to change things like insurance, because actually you're not just saying we need to change this because of volunteering. You're saying actually we're trying to achieve this as an organisation, and our internal policies aren't helping us achieve that. So I think it's worth maybe thinking about this conversation within those wider ambitions.
Yeah, it's definitely something I struggled with at the beginning, sort of, starting it off. It really does sort of hold you back from taking the plunge to, opening out that recruitment. And I think it's, something that us as a sort of heritage volunteer group could look into further, in us starting this and sharing this conversation. I think will be really useful going forward for all of us.
Well, so we've got probably time for one or two more questions. Obviously, if people do need to nip off, that's absolutely fine. Sheila, we'll come to you first, and then we'll move quickly on to Annette.
Hi there. Yes, I was just really interested to see if you'd noticed any difference in the demographic through offering family volunteering, particularly at the Whtworth.
Yeah, so that was kind of the main reason why, one of the other reasons why I started doing it, because that demographic sort of where we're situated, if people don't know, we're a university gallery, but we sit within quite a socially deprived area. So we sit within Moss Side, Rusholme. So we wanted to start engaging those families within our volunteering. They were starting to attend the sessions, but I wanted to sort of engage them further in the volunteer programme as well. And we actually, one of the call outs that we did after we did the trial was with our local Sure Start Centre in Rusholme. So we got a couple of families from there. And I think for them, it's their first time in the gallery. They were a little bit, they had sort of a low confidence in terms of, engaging in the gallery, because they felt like it wasn't for them. But I think involving them in the activities, which were playful and fun, and not just about the art on the walls or the sort of the traditional sense of an art gallery, opening that out, I think they sort of realized that it was for them as well, and the fact that they could bring along their children was a bonus, really, because like I say, that was the restriction. That was why they weren't able to come and volunteer, because they were with their children in the day. So for us that's really worked, and I think going forward that's we have done most of, if not all of, our recruitment within the locality, so engaging those families on our doorstep. So it's been really successful in terms of that.
Brilliant, thanks, Sheila. Sorry, I'm going to have to cut us short, I'm afraid, Fee, because I've just realised that we've got an EDI open forum starting in around about 30 seconds, and if we don't close this meeting, we can't start that one on time, and then Ben will be chasing me and slapping my wrist. So,
This is a great example of inclusive practice, isn't it? Really.
Absolutely. If it's okay with you, Fee, I shall forward on Annette's question to you, and then maybe if you could get back to her, that'd be fab, if that's okay, Annette. And yes, I'll hand over to you to wrap up.
Brilliant. Yeah, so thanks very much for attending this afternoon. It's been really great, really good discussion points as well. I think it's something that we'll perhaps look into further as we go towards conference time, maybe another coffee afternoon session. So it'd be really great to get your feedback from today, and if there's any more questions around the topic, then feel free to email me. Actually, I'll just pop that in the chat, and Leonie, if you're happy to share your details as well, if you've got any other further questions, it's great to continue on. So thank you for bearing with us in my first hosting of a HVG coffee afternoon, and hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you, Fee, and thank you everyone for joining us. And it might be best if you just email Fee and Fee directly, and then she'll be able to get back to you about your question. Brilliant. Have a nice afternoon, everyone, and we'll see all of you very soon if you're coming along to the EDI Open Forum. And Ben's just posted the chat details in there for you. See you all later. Bye.